So let's start with a quick background of this issue and what exactly is at stake in this dispute.
Well, in terms of the labeling, there's really two parts here. If you go back to the original dispute, there was mandatory country of origin labeling brought in, which really put a very heavy burden on imported livestock. And it was really about the cattle and the hogs that were being imported from Canada and Mexico. And they're being heavily discounted as a result of the additional segregation and other requirements that went on. And that's what eventually led to the WTO siding with Canada that it was unfair treatment, and essentially gave us the chance, if the rules weren't changed, that there would be legal tariffs that could be put in place. Fortunately, cooler heads prevailed. The rules were repealed, and we're seeing a properly functioning North American market now.
All right, sir. So how much of the U.S. beef supply is supported by imports from Canada in the first place?
Normally it's about 2.9% that comes in, but there's also a significant quantity that goes from the United States up into Canada. And we have about the same number of live animals that are being imported from the US into Canada as well. We actually have the largest two-way trade in beef and live cattle in the world between Canada and the US. And it really allows some of the efficiencies regionally to flow, where areas we produce more cattle, areas the US produces more cattle that are closer to our population, and leads actually to a more competitive North American market.
So why now? Why is the U.S. government pushing for changes to the labeling rules in this particular time?
I think the main thrust of what was announced yesterday is actually about more of the competitive environment in the US. They're looking at how do you get more medium and smaller sized plants, so you simply have more processing capacity down there. There is another process that is going that is looking at the labeling, whether it's product of the US or processed in the US. And that has a fair bit to do with the amount of transformation that occurs in a product. It's fairly normal around the world for slaughter to convey origin, where you do have integrated markets like exist between Canada and the US. But, we're hopeful as we move forward that we're actually going to see a more competitive US market. That's good for us as well. But at the same time, we avoid the costly mistakes for both countries. There was a US study that estimated it was, over the period that they studied, it would have cost the US industry over $8 billion lost income as well, the way the old country of origin labeling rules were being prescribed as well. So hopefully what we see is something that strengthens both markets.
All right, Mr. Laycraft. Well, how has the pandemic itself impacted the supply chain in your industry?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think similar to the US, early on in April, May 2020, we saw plants having to shut down for a short period of time. Across North America, they've spent $1.5 billion in different things to protect worker safety in the plants. And since that time, we've been able to operate pretty much to full capacity. And, that's certainly allowed for a more resilient supply chain. And in both countries, we're seeing our exports grow, particularly to Asia. So it's not just, we're able to meet the supply demands in North America. We've been able to help fill that void around the world as well.
All right, sir, just a quick 30 seconds left here, but where can our viewers learn more about your organization?
They can certainly come to our website, www.cattle.ca. But again, one thing I always like to remind people, we have one of the greatest trade relationships in the world. We have the largest two-way trade of any two nations in the world. And quite often, Canada is the largest export market for US agri-food products. It's always either Canada or China. And, we have such a great relationship that hopefully as we move forward and we look at policies, we're trying to build on the positives around those relationships.